Hey, what's going on, Los Angeles? Welcome back to the Rams Skinny here on the LA Football Network. Excited to be with you for another off-season episode. The Combine is kicking off this week in beautiful Indianapolis, Indiana. Skinny T and I were there in the flesh last year. Unfortunately, this year we will not be there. We should be there. Our names are on a placard somewhere in Indianapolis, but the flights became outrageous from LA to Indy. So we'll be covering the event from here, but we got plenty of coverage for you. Today we're talking centers, edge players, and cornerbacks, defensively, cornerbacks that the Rams and Rams fans should be looking for this week in Indy. Plus, a little chatter on Sean Desai, who was just added to the staff as a defensive assistant by Sean McVay yesterday. So first of all, as always, my better half, Mr. Skinny T. What's up, brother? How you doing?
Doing good. I'm sad that we're not in Indy. No slippery noodle. No steak over there. The St. Elmo's. No Lucas Oil Stadium, one of the great stadiums I think in all of football. Yep. But I'm happy to be here with you and talking football. And Combine's a really exciting time. The Rams don't go, which is always kind of funny. We're writing articles and talking Combine, and they're just not even there. So, but plenty to learn. They're going to have their medical staff out there for sure, because that's still a priority out there, is figuring out who's, how much tread is left on these tires, and whose back hurts too much, and all that good stuff. And over 300 MRIs take place Combine week, which is incredible. And I was listening to a bit of discussion about, if it should move to Vegas or out here to LA. And that's one of the big reasons, is they have everything's pretty centrally located, and all those medical facilities out there. So MRIs are not cheap.
No, nice stat drop there. But yeah, that's one event I hope they never move. After being there in person last year, it's such a perfect city for it. It's just Indy's like it's a big city, but it has a small feel. You can get everywhere right around the stadium very easily on foot. Everything you need to do, the convention center is right there. Our hotel, we had the backdrop of our window was Lucas Oil when we recorded. It was awesome. So I hope that's a city they never change for the Combine. But yeah, medical staff important. Obviously, a player we're going to talk about, Laiatu Latu, edge of UCLA, that this network has talked about a lot, being an LA football player. That's one of his biggest concerns, is the medical history and what they'll look at, the neck injury he sustained a few years back at Washington. So, that's a big reason. But yeah, we'll get into all of that. Let's start. Well, first, big shout out to our friends at BetOnline. Head to betonline.ag today. Use our promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV. Gets you a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. You can bet on the draft. Who's going to be the first player taken? Most likely it's going to be our guy from USC, Caleb Williams. But if you think someone else, throw some money down. You can see who the Rams are taking. A lot of stuff going on at BetOnline. BetOnline.ag, promo code BELIEVE. Tell them the guys at the Rams Skinny sent you. Let's start, Skinny, with this Sean Desai hire. We thought the staff was complete. Yesterday comes out. They added another piece. Sean Desai, formerly, he has a really, really impressive history and track record, but formerly the defensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles. We all know how interesting that situation was there in Philly last year, but now comes over as a senior defensive assistant for the Rams. So before I get my take, just your thought on the news, your thought on what potentially his role might be, and how he kind of fits in this new Sean McVay philosophy, if you will.
Yeah, I think it's another good hire, and it shows a consistent pattern of what they're trying to do, which is staff up around each and every one of their coaches basically is getting an assistant or somebody that's going to help out. And, we talked a lot about how they're doing that a ton this year on the offensive side. So it's nice to see just another guy who's got high level experience, multiple years of experience in the NFL, a varied amount of experience working with defensive backs and different aspects of the defense. So you got to like that. And, he's one of these guys I think just rose too quickly. He got a little bit ahead over his skis, and that's why he struggled in with the Eagles. Took off more than he could chew, I guess, in that regard. But for the Rams at this kind of role, I think that's great.
Yeah, you mentioned that he began his coaching career as a graduate assistant at Temple back in '06. And then, made his debut in the NFL for the Bears from 2013 to 2018 as a defensive quality control coach. So 5 years as a quality control coach, moved up to safeties coach for 2 years, and then made the jump to coordinator. So fairly quick. I know that's, from '06 to, 2019, that's 13 years in terms of coaching, but quality control coach to a 2-year position coach to a coordinator is a decent leap. And then from the Bears, went to the Seahawks for that 1 year as an associate head coach and defensive assistant. And then obviously last year as a DC for the Eagles and everything you said. So, yeah, we'll see what this move will entail in terms of what his true role is. It has a very similar vibe to me, Skinny T, as when they brought on Jimmy Lake last year. A guy that was kind of different reasons, obviously, but estranged from his last position, was the head coach at Washington and ended up getting fired for, contract detrimental and the issues that they had on the sideline there, but a very good coach. Coach secondary, was a very good defensive coordinator, just didn't work out as a defensive coordinator or as a head coach, excuse me. Rams bring him in, and I thought he had a great voice in that system with Raheem Morris, with the other, Chris Shula, who's now the defensive coordinator. And now Jimmy Lake has moved over to defensive coordinator with Raheem Morris in Atlanta. And so this feels like a spot for Sean Desai to bring some expertise in, kind of be a voice in the room, but not be running the show, but basically set himself up to probably be a DC again next year. So the Rams are now going to be the Alabama of the NFL. We've talked about it before, the rehabilitation center for coaches to come in, be within a winning organization, be within a good system, a great head coach in Sean McVay, and get yourself back on track to then go and tackle that next job. But I think it's a great hire. I don't see any downsides to it. Do you?
No, not at all. And Jimmy Lake is the perfect example. I read earlier this week that in his time he was working a lot with the offense, and that's what Sean Desai is gonna be doing, is working with the offensive side of the ball a lot and kind of teaching them how to get around the Fangio principles. That's kind of his tree that he comes from. So yeah, I think, I love the idea of a rehabilitation center because you can learn a lot from a guy like Coach McVay. But the Rams get to reap the benefits of having great minds come through the building as well. So it works very symbiotically. And yeah, I mean, let's go defense.
Yeah, and I like that too. That addition you talk about of taking a defensive guy to work with the offense, because you play football and everyone knows this. If you don't play, like in practice, you have the scout team, right? They're supposed to be emulating things from the other team's offense or defense to help your starting unit. So having a coach on your staff that is basically in the ears of the offense to think defensively, whether it's your defensive unit or the opponent you're going up against, and their sole purpose is studying the film of that team's defense to then go to Stafford and say, hey, here's the tendencies of these guys. Like, it's just another mouthpiece, another data point, if you will, to give these players. When we were at Super Bowl, we met with Puka Nacua and the next gen stats guys, and now they're all talking data points, and all the coaches have their data points throughout practice of like how they need to hit certain speeds. This is just another data point, another coach though that can come to these players and say, hey, here's what I've noticed you're doing. Here's from a defensive mind how I would do things differently. Here's what this team is doing that's going to be attacking you this week. So home run, I think. Why not?
Yeah, excellent. Yeah.
So, all right, let's get into this combine. What do you want to start? Do you want to do corners, centers, or edge players?
Let's start with edge players. I think that's kind of the hot position on everybody's mind right now, is how are they going to address this position?
Would you agree that as it stands right now before free agency, this is the biggest position of need for the Rams?
Yeah, 100%. You could argue cornerback, but I think that a lot of the reasons the cornerbacks did struggle and the secondary did struggle last year was because the pass rush wasn't getting home fast enough and often enough.
Yeah, I totally agree. So all right, we're going to base this off articles that you wrote. Go to LAFBnetwork.com to check out these articles and all of our Rams content, getting a ton up there every day. Skinny T is doing a phenomenal job. But so let me kick it over to you, because you give 3 names here for us to watch for the Rams. And I think, I've read through it obviously, but I want you to talk about it. You didn't do all like first round selections. These are guys that they could get in the first or maybe later on down the draft. So I'll let you let's just start with one. Start with the top one. Let's talk about it. Go to the next one, and we'll end with the third one.
Sure thing.
Like that.
So yeah, Latu is my first guy up there, and I have so many questions about what they want to do with their first round pick, and edge rusher is the most important position on defense, I think. So using a first rounder makes a lot of sense. They're very expensive if they go out and try to get Brian Burns or Josh Allen from Jacksonville. They're gonna cost a lot of money, $25 million a year or so. Getting a rookie that ensures that you're going to pay that guy a couple $1 million over the next 4 years, which is, from a financial perspective, it allows you to continue to build, with the cornerbacks or on offense or anything you want to do with that extra money. So at 19, Leatu here may not land there. This class has all sorts of variants in terms of who they think is the best and who they think is, who's going to land in the first round. Some people think that Leatu might not even land in the first round.
Yeah,
some people think he's number 1. Some people think he's number 3, number 4. And that it's not because all of these guys are just, phenomenal prospects. It's because all of them have some red flags. All of them have some doubts. There isn't just a Micah Parsons in this where it's just like that guy, we got to get that guy. But what's amazing about Latu is his handwork and his footwork are just elite. He's a super smart guy from a football IQ perspective, top notch. But does he have that athletic side to him? And you brought it up already, his injury history. He was medically retired just a few years ago, and he came back and he fought back, and that shows a lot of grit and determination. You got to like that. But this is a top end position, and do the Rams want to use their number 1 first round pick to get a guy that has question marks at this most important position? They've tried over and over and over again to find a guy in later rounds, guys with question marks and red flags. And Byron Young is the first in kind of this McVay Snead ramp up to that they've drafted that's been able to stay out there on the field. We've seen guys come on, lots of promise, just super athletic and freaky in that way. And we never see him, see from or hear from Terrell Lewis, Chris Garrett, Daniil Hardy. There's the list is long, and is this a risk they're willing to take? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a great ending point, and this is where the Sean McVay and Les Snead aren't going to be there, most likely not going to be there, based on what we know. And so this is where the medical staff is like, hey, you got to scout a lot of players, but this is the number 1 guy you got to meet with Latu and really get in there and dig deep. Now, the positive with Latu, as you mentioned, medically retired just 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, I guess, 2 full seasons ago. Since coming back, I don't believe he's missed a snap. Definitely didn't miss a game, was very healthy during his time at UCLA. So definitely still a scare, definitely worth looking into. But it's not like a guy like Terrell Lewis that was still off and on his entire final season at Alabama and just like had that injuries following him all the way to the draft. Latu's 2 years removed from having any real injuries. Now, there were very substantial injuries because he was medically retired. And that's a big deal. It's a neck injury, which, can threaten walking ability if things go bad. But if the Rams feel comfortable with how he's looked these last 2 years in terms of medicals, I mean, this is to me a home run pick at 19. And I agree with you. It's interesting that some people you talk to, and we talk to a lot at the Super Bowl on Radio Row, some have him have a top 15 prospect. Some have him not even in the first round. And I think most of that has to do with the medical history, as it does with other players. When you look at Michael Penix, when you look at some of the other guys, medicals run a huge risk factor when you're giving that much investment for a single player in the first round. But if he checks those boxes, he certainly checks every other box in terms of football IQ, pass rush ability, pass rush moves, size, 6'4", 261, speed, and obviously his off the field, he's just a great young kid and a great leader and has all those intangibles too. So certainly a guy that I would love to see in Horns. I think a lot of Rams fans would love. You hear his name. Anytime you keep an LA, I know he's an LA kid originally, but anytime you keep now an LA kid in LA, I love that. It's great for our network, but I think it's a good move for the Rams and what they can pair with, based on what they do in free agency. But having him and Byron Young, 2 really young, really talented guys, is a lot of fun to the future. So yeah, I love the Latu pick.
Yeah, and I think in terms of watching him at the combine, what will be interesting to see is, can he flash as an athlete at this point? He didn't get a lot of attention coming out of the Senior Bowl, and let's see if he gets a lot of attention coming out of the combine. He's not going to set any land speed records or explosiveness records, but let's see how athletic he can be.
Yeah, great point. All right, who you got next to watch?
So the other Penn State edge rusher, I'm not sure if I got his pronunciation right, but Adisa Isaac, 6'4", 254 out of Penn State, as I said. Chop Robinson being the guy that's getting a lot of attention this time of year. He's getting some first round, early second round attention. This guy is less so getting that kind of attention, but he outproduced Chop Robinson. 16 tackles for loss, had 9 sacks, led the team in pressures, played 13 games, solid in coverage, just allowed 3 catches on 20 snaps in coverage. So he's kind of the quintessential Rams kind of edge rusher pick, a little bit undersized, but uber athletic. So this is kind of late second, maybe third round kind of a guy.
Yeah, I like that a lot too, and it'll be fun to see how he measures out and what his speed tests and agility tests are. Because if you don't get a guy in the first round, like when you're drafting first round, obviously production is great, but you're drafting for upside. Like you're going that high, it's like, what are the measurables? What's the ceiling like on this guy? Like production is nice, but first round, I'm looking at ceiling and measurables. Once you get in that second, third, fourth round, then you can say like, okay, well, how productive was this guy? Like he may not have the size, the speed that we would look for in the first, which is why this guy fell to the second or third. But if he had an uber productive career, we think we can get a lot out of him based on the guys we're going to put around him as well. So I think this is a really good pick. You mentioned Chop Robinson is like the premier guy that's being looked at Penn State. Isaac had more production, had higher production. So, I mean, sometimes I'm not saying he's going to be a better player and is a better prospect, but if you split those drafts up by, in between first round versus third round, well, you get all that production in the third round. That's great. So yeah, I love that as a guy to watch, and I'm looking forward to seeing him run drills in Indy.
Yeah. And so according to Zebra Technologies RFID tracking, he wasn't the fastest guy at the Senior Bowl, which is, those metrics are things that the Rams do look at. So I'm not sure if his just under 16 mile per hour top speed is going to get him in the door for the Rams, but he had what they track explosive efforts, which I'm not entirely sure what that looks like, but a good amount of explosive efforts from him at the Senior Bowl. So just watch out for him in the vertical leap, broad jump, should be good in those two things. Last guy that I have on this list is kind of an up and comer, not a lot of snaps under his belt from a football perspective. Austin Booker, Kansas, Rock Chalk Jayhawks, 6'6", 245. What do you think about them apples?
I mean, that's great size. I mean, he's bigger than all the other two on the list and weighs just about the same. So you can't beat that.
Yeah. It turns out that if you get a fantastic athlete and you put him at edge rusher, they can produce. And this guy's an upside pick. I mean, he's 505 snaps, which there are pass rushers in this class that have had more than 505 snaps just in the pass rush alone. This is 505 snaps, period. And he's light. He's undersized. He's within the third percentile of edge rushers. So, but at that height, in his frame, wide guy, long arms, he can add a bunch of weight. And that's kind of what I'm looking for, just the weigh-in. Has he been able to put on some weight since the end of the season? And then if that's true, he's an athlete. And if he can keep his speed, and, he actually had fantastic production with the limited amount of snaps that he did get. Let me pull up the article here and just confirm. So 12 games. He had 8 sacks in 12 games, 56 tackles, 12 tackles for loss, 2 forced fumbles. And some of his biggest games came against the best competition in the Big 12. So all good things. that I'm seeing from that.
That's great. Those are the guys that like not a lot of people will probably know. And so they'll be fun to watch at the combine and, as the draft process goes, and we can reassess once free agency hits and like, okay, are these like, again, if the Rams do swing big, I know a lot of Rams fans now don't want this to happen, but if they swing big for a Brian Burns or someone in free agency, but they still need to probably add another edge guy in the draft. Now a guy like Booker is someone to look at because they're obviously not going to go for, most likely wouldn't go for like a Latu in the first round, but one of these mid-round guys is someone to look for. So great pick there. A lot of fun always watching the edge guys. Last year we saw some unbelievable 40 times from some of those edge and defensive linemen. The big bodies in the middle even had some big ones. Kalijah Cansey, I think, set the record for defensive tackle 40 times, just beating out Aaron Donald, if I'm not mistaken, which is an edge, it's tackle. But anyway, so there'll be some fireworks on Indy with these guys. But all right, what do we do next? Centers or corners? Do we jump to center, do offense, and then jump back to defense?
Yeah. That's a fair way to do it.
Center, we didn't really talk about it, but Brian Allen released, much to the, I don't want to say happiness, but I guess it wasn't a huge disappointment for a lot of Rams fans. Coleman Shelton is a restricted free agent, so most likely you would assume he will be back in Horns, but that is not done yet. Without Coleman Shelton, Rams got no one at center. So they got to, even with Shelton, though, they got to probably draft someone or at least add someone in free agency. And so when you look at your list that you talked about, must-see centers, I think there's some really good players here that can probably even start day one if needed. Obviously, I think the perfect scenario would be to re-sign Coleman Shelton. He's your day one starter unless one of these guys just absolutely blows you away in minicamp and in training camp, but you can ease him in instead of throwing the center, which is the most important player, verbally and kind of altruistically in the offensive line. I know the tackles are important in terms of protecting the blind side, but the center kind of is the quarterback of the line. It's always tough when you throw a rookie in there right off the bat. So, but that being said, let's talk through some of your guys here.
Yeah, the first guy off the top here I like is Graham Barton. And if you do go check out the article, there's this fantastic picture that I included on there of him lifting this running back up into the air. And I looked up this running back. He's not a small guy. He's 5'11", 200 pounds. And he's just kind of benching this dude. He's doing like a full dirty dancing into this. There we go.
There just to flail his legs back.
Yeah, exactly. He's the running back is failing him. But, his one of the things that if you look back at all of the a lot of the linemen that the Rams have drafted is they like versatility, and Graham Barton brings versatility. He's played tackle. Now his arms are a bit short. He's a bit of a T-Rex kind of a guy, so he's definitely going to move into the middle for the pros. But he's got experience at center. He can play guard, which you start thinking about Kevin Dotson. Apparently, the rest of the league realized that Kevin Dotson had a pretty good year himself. And he might not be in the realm of getting him back in free agency. So this guy could be center. He could move over to guard. He's perfect size guy for this position. The 6'5", 311 pounds. I didn't put Jackson Powers Johnson in here just because I don't think he's going to last to 19. He's a quintessential center, though. He doesn't give him that versatility. And Barton does. And, in terms of centers, like you were saying, what are you going to look for at the combine from a center? There's not a lot that you can garner from it. This is kind of you want to sit down with this guy. You want to interview him. You want to talk about, what was your role in the offense? What was communication like for these guys? And, from what I know about Graham Barton, at the very least, from what I've read, super smart guy, totally locked in that realm. And that's what you really want from a center.
Yeah. I think versatility is going to be very important for the Rams this draft. And they usually do draft kind of versatile offensive line guys. And we've seen them draft many times guys at tackle, they slide into guard and vice versa. So that wouldn't be surprising. But yeah, you mentioned Dotson. Luckily, they'll know going into the draft what that situation is like. But per Spotrac, which is not the end all be all, but they have a fairly good sense of how things work with contracts. Dotson is projected to get an annual salary of $16.4 million per year. So, a pretty penny to retain Kevin Dotson here in LA. I personally, we haven't totally dived through the entire roster as it stands right now, but I personally think it's probably worth it. Just you can check that box. You don't have to worry about it. But if that doesn't happen, they'll probably sign a vet that they can at least slot in somewhere. But then a guy like Barton gives you that versatility to, if Shelton goes down or if they don't bring Shelton back, he'll be the center. But if Shelton reclaims a starting job, you can slide Barton over to guard. So I think it's a great guy to watch. Who you got next?
Cedric Van Pran, Georgia, 6'4", 310 pounds,
Great
similar
name.
size, and just a cornerstone of 2 championship teams. Like what I was saying about watching centers at the combine. Well, how much are you going to learn from watching a guy run 40 yards? What I want to see from a center is how much experience and how much high level experience. So this guy's got high level experience playing in the SEC, playing against the best competition in college football. And he's played a long time. He's played lots of snaps. So that's really all you can ask for, and I look at, getting Cedric Van Pran or my final guy, Andrew Rame, from Oklahoma, as kind of atoning for not picking up a center a couple years ago and going in a very different direction.
Yes, not getting Creed Humphrey from Oklahoma. So just in with that, and you can even mention it quickly. Andrew Pram, what do you like about him? Is it that same kind of pedigree? And
same thing. He's played a long time in Oklahoma, 3 years, and you can get him in the 3rd round, and that's a nice place to get a center, even if a starter. Yeah. You don't see a lot of these guys going in the 1st round, and he's 6'3", 315, so kind of meeting that new Rams standard for interior offensive linemen. Just bigger guys that can push bodies, move bodies out of the way, so that Kyren Williams can do his thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So those will be great. Luckily, it's a very good center class overall this year. So there is some depth there, but the Rams will certainly need, regardless of what happens with Shelton, regardless of what they do in free agency, they'll probably need to add some interior guy, at least one, this draft. So those are 3 good ones to watch at the combine. And finally, wrapping this thing up, when you look at cornerback, defensive back, cornerback, whatever you want to call it, not necessarily safeties. A lot of question marks here. It was the group that, I thought some games looked great. Some games definitely looked inexperienced and like you needed some more stalwarts over there or something to build around on that side of the ball. We'll see what they do in free agency. They'll have some money to spend, whether they retain some or go after some big names. I know a lot of people are wanting to go after L'Jarius Sneed from Kansas City. That's obviously a pipe dream, and we'll see what happens there. But in terms of the combine, your first one I love. So let's just start with him because I think he'd be a really fun one to see out here in LA.
Yeah, Cooper DeJean, man. If you look at anything that there's, what's all similar between all the guys I picked, they're all big and physical. So he's 6'1", 207 pounds. Again, Rams love versatility. They love it at every position, especially on defense, especially at defensive back. He's played safety. He's played cornerback, bona fide 6-footer. So he's also a return specialist. So, that's been an area of need. So that could be something that he brings as well. I like other guys in the 1st round, but I think they're going to be going fairly quickly. And then if you're left with like a guy like Nate Wiggins, I just don't think he plays with the kind of physicality that the Rams are going to want, and that Cooper DeJean does bring. So I like that. I like that idea for him. And it's amazing. It's fun to watch how mock drafts kind of shift and move over the weeks and months of draft silly season. And everybody's starting to move towards Cooper DeJean and away from Latu, actually. Latu was kind of picked early on for the Rams. And now we're seeing a lot more cornerbacks going, and especially Cooper.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great one. And you mentioned, what to watch for while he's there, and that's the explosive drills, the 10-yard split, the vertical jump, the broad jump, just to kind of see how he tests in that explosiveness. But certainly a need for the Rams. He can join a very young group. So maybe he'll be, he played at Iowa. Those guys at Iowa seem to come out at like 30 years old anyway. So maybe he'll be one of the older statesmen of the secondary. But who you got next on your list?
Yeah, let's see here. Another big
Iowa
guy.
Iowa State, the rival.
Oh yeah, yeah. TJ Tampa from Iowa State, not Tampa, but again, just a big dude, and he's big and he's long, 32 and a half inch arms, and he's going to drop into the third, maybe early second, or second, maybe early third, which would be an ideal spot to pick up this guy. They just lack so much size, and I doubt that they're going to go after Kella Witherspoon. We'll see what happens with him, but just adding a bit of size and a bit of physicality. Darian Kendrick was the most physical defensive back that they had on the field. Maybe Russ Yeast, but Darian Kendrick obviously has some flaws in his game. Even Akella Witherspoon was got exposed a few times on some deep routes, and this is just an effort to kind of cap that off. Bump the receiver off the line, coming off the snap, and stay with him. That's what I want to see from the defensive backs, and TJ Tampa is that kind of guy.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, physicality is the name of the game on this, and as you keep bringing it up, and that's what they want to run, and we'll see how much of a difference Chris Shula does things than Raheem Morris, but I can't see it being much different than what we've become accustomed to these last few years. The versatility, the physicality, and how they've kind of drafted, especially because Chris Shula has been in those war rooms, been in those drafting. Aubrey Pleasant's been in those war rooms, been in how they draft. So that pedigree from your defensive backs, I think, certainly will continue that trend. So the final one that you got on your list is from your favorite college team. So go ahead.
Yeah, from the Fighting Irish, Cam Hart, another big guy. What I liked about him was what he showed at the Senior Bowl, and the RFID Zebra Technologies tracking that they did with him. Lots of explosive, good speed, always at the top of acceleration, deceleration. All of this data is available. If you guys want to go check it out, just type Zebra and Senior Bowl into the Googler there, and you can look at all this stuff. And as we know, the Rams rely heavily on this kind of data, not specifically from the Senior Bowl, from the colleges as well. So this kind of seems like a nice guy in the third, fourth round for the Rams. And I did have one more. I did break the mold. I added
that's right.
Max Melton. He's a little shorter. I'm curious how he's going to measure out. 5'11", 195 is kind of what they got up on the draft boards around the internet. But he posted almost 21 mile per hour via, again, Zebra Technologies. So and good explosive efforts from him as well. So just kind of a day three guy to keep your eye out for. Just another. He kind of falls into those other categories that the Rams have drafted that they already have on the roster. But, how many, speed and explosiveness, you got to have that. You got to like that.
Yeah, you got to have numbers, let them duke it out, like kind of a similar mold to like a Trey Tomlinson that took last year on day three in terms of size. Yeah, this guy's 3 inches taller. So, but that in terms of just the smaller type versus the big guys you were talking about. But yeah, love it. So all 4 of those guys, make sure to check out the combine. All 10 total between edge, center, and quarter. That was some quick math right there from yours truly. Yeah, good stuff. Anything else to add before we wrap up this edition of Skinny Tea or Ram Skinny?
Well, just another Notre Dame guy that's been in the back of my head, running back Audric Estime. They already got one Golden Domer back there. This guy's bigger, maybe more durable than Kyron Williams, and is quick. So if I can advise you guys to watch anybody else in the combine, just see what kind of explosive athlete he looks like. Does he have that kind of, what's his straight line speed look like? He's explosive. What's his change of direction like? That's gonna be what I'm looking for that guy. I like him a lot. Just watching him a lot of times on Saturdays, and it just kind of tickled my brain to think, maybe another Golden Domer back there.
Yeah, certainly interesting. I mean, he'll be one of the top backs. Running backs are always so fascinating because it's like, oh, this is a top back, and the top back may not go till the third round this year,
especially this year. Yeah,
yeah, just with like the positional value of the running back. So. I think Rams need to prepare themselves that the Rams will probably take a running back at some point. They'll have a bevy of draft picks. They tendered Ronnie Rivers. Obviously, Kyron Williams is entering year 3. Remember, he only has 2 years left on his rookie deal because he wasn't a first rounder, so doesn't have a 5th-year option. And the Rams, since Todd Gurley, have basically just rotated through their rookie picks. And so I know everyone loves Kyron Williams, as do we on this show, but I would not be shocked if they don't extend him and they just basically draft one this year. So when he's done, now that running back's entering their 3rd year, or they basically draft one every year. So not saying it's going to be Estime that early. I like Estime a lot. Tremendous college back. I mean, if he somehow falls to the 4th home run steal, I think in the 2nd or 3rd, they need to go elsewhere. But if they do end up trading back and getting 2 2s or 2 3s, like maybe they use it back. And if Estime is there, it's not going to hurt you having Estime and Kyron Williams. I mean, what a 1-2 punch right there with a little speedster and Ronnie Rivers. So yeah, I think Rams fans probably need to get behind the fact that the Rams will take a running back at some point, because that seems to be their draft strategy that we've seen since the downfall of the Todd Gurley extension, if you will. I don't want to say downfall of Todd, but go ahead.
And you want that. You want another running back. You don't want Kyron Williams carrying the entire load. He's been hurt. He got hurt last year. He got hurt his rookie year, and you gotta break it up a little bit. And they were as nice as Ronnie Rivers was a compliment. Sean McVay didn't have a lot of confidence in him.
Yeah,
he wasn't in there.
You don't want to go into a playoff run or a regular season stretch like they did last year and having to sign guys off the street. Darrell Henderson had obviously familiarity, but signed him off the couch. They brought in other guys in Royce Freeman off the street. So it's like, if you can have a young stable from what you've built and groomed within your draft room, that's best case scenario. God forbid someone does get hurt. You have that depth there that you've built and you've groomed, and not just calling some guy up who hasn't played in a few weeks and said, hey, you want to come and see if you can get 4 touches for us a game?
Those kind of things are not a plan. That's not how you run an effective running game. Last thing, we didn't touch on it, but Demarcus Robinson, a Ram for at least one more year on just $4 million cap hit with a $1 million incentive package in there. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, great. I would have loved to see him if they could have even done it a little longer, like a 2 to 3 year deal, just because I think he locked him up a little bit. But super valuable back. We raved about him all the time, but it was great to see how much more he was involved in the offense as the season went on, and became a really good target for Matthew Stafford, especially in the red zone, which the team ultimately struggled from here and there at moments. So if they can get him ingrained even sooner, it's only going to open things up for Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, and Tutu, and any other guys they draft. So love it. Pumped for DeMarcus is back. He seemed excited. So great that he'll be here in LA for at least one more year.
Yeah, absolutely. And it makes you wonder if they're going to target another wide receiver, maybe find another Puka Nacua in the 5th round or something like that.
They seem to be good at that. These mid-round guys that they can just turn into superstars. So why not? Don't use a 2nd round. We don't need a 2nd round pick on a receiver like they did before. 3rd, 4th, 5th. That's where you get your Hall of Fame receivers at nowadays, if you're the Rams. So maybe next episode, we're going to be talking receivers, I believe. We'll hit the rest of the positions for the draft, or for the combine, I should say. So maybe we'll hit some mid-round receivers that the Rams and Rams fans should look for at the combine. That'll be fun. Start your homework.
It's so interesting to look at like what the Rams have been just lights out at drafting, and then the positions that they've just not been able to hit, like edge rusher for one.
Yeah. They cannot draft edge. Byron Young is the best edge they've drafted, and it's only been 1 year, so we'll see.
And he was the 2nd or 3rd rounder. Yeah,
3rd round. Was he before Kobe Turner, or was it flipped?
He was before. Yeah, before both 3rd round. Yeah,
both 3rd round. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So Byron Young, and I remember we were sitting watching the draft, like, there's another project. Come on down, do it yourself, DIYer.
No more projects. Let's get a dude. Van Ginkel. Van Ginkel's catching on. I'm seeing it. It happen.
You started that trend. I'm seeing a lot of people tweet about it. I'm seeing the Googler come up about it. So Van Ginkel would be great. You get Van Ginkel, got Byron Young, get maybe another edge guy, and hey, if they get Latu in that first, then we're set.
You get a cut Joey Bosa, and he just comes in on 3rd down. And wrecks it there. Like we got a lot of crap on the internet for our Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack take, but you get him on the right contract, and you don't have to play him a ton because you got 2 younger guys, 2 athletes out there. He just comes in and wrecks the game when you need it.
Let's end with that really fast, because I do not believe both Bosa and Mack will be on the Chargers. And there's always chatter about whether they'll be traded or cut. There are talks now that there is interest in Mack. NFL teams are interested in potentially trading for Mack so they doesn't hit the open market and they can just get it themselves. I'm guessing, based on what we've seen from trades in the past, a la Von Miller. The difference with Von Miller, he was on an expiring contract and was only owed like $17 million, not $27 million, and had still a few years left and was younger at the time. But you look at Jalen Ramsey, who the Rams got, a third and a third string tight end for. And so I think a lot of fans, and I don't mean any disrespect, but just kind of live in la-la land and what they think players will get back in a trade. My thought is Mack, when traded for, netted it was a second and a sixth that got him to Los Angeles. Obviously, didn't have the money to deal with either that the Chargers are now giving to another team. I'm guessing you could get it done for a fifth or sixth period, 1.5 or 1.6. If you don't want him to hit the market and you're willing to take on that contract, because I think Bosa is going to be a little more interesting. He is younger. He has the injury history. Seems to be like he's more back in the fold with the Chargers just because of his age. Would you do that for the Rams? Let's say it's a fifth. So we'll go a little higher, a little richer. Would you give up a fifth to take on Khalil Mack and his contract?
Do you know off the top of your head how much is? I mean, his contract it's the number one contract on a very bloated salary cap.
I know his cap hit this year is like $27 million. But let me see for sure what his
and the Chargers aren't going to hang on to any of that. They're not going to cut that kind of a deal.
Yeah, so his 24, this is his last year. His cap number is $38 million. And then dead money is $15 million or $23 million based on pre-June or whatever.
I just think his production prices him out of the Rams. What the Rams would be willing to do. Bosa, on the other hand, Bosa seems like a Von Miller-y kind of a move right now. It wasn't Miller's one last run, but this might be his one last run. But distressed asset, cut. I don't know. Yeah, I could see Bosa.
So Bosa's cap number this year is $36 million, so 2 less than Max, and then he's under contract for 25, but no guaranteed salary. His cap number is $32 million, but he is 29 versus Mac being 33. Obviously has injury history, but the Chargers have kind of the bad luck with injuries. Maybe the Rams and their performance team can turn that around. So you're saying you would rather see them maybe give up a little bit more to get a Bosa than give up less and get a Mac?
Well, I think Mac is going to end up garnering a lot. He had 17 sacks. I don't. I'm not a trade wizard on this one, but I think it just seems like if everything aligns correctly, Bosa gets cut, Rams pick him up on kind of just a little sweetheart deal, probably a little bit more than he deserves, and then play him in a limited capacity, so that the injury history just isn't, coming up as a factor, and just see what you get out of him. You bring him on as a veteran into an incredibly young defense. I like that. I like Mac as well. I just think he's gonna get a bit more.
What do you think he'll? Just putting on the spot. What do you think he'll net in trade capital?
Well, oh man, I'd have to look into it a bit more to give a educated answer. Just because I'm not entirely sure how, like, everybody is edge needy, and there are teams that are just not smart about that. They think 17 sacks, he's going to do it again this year. Let's trade for him. I'm not going to say first or second. I'll say a third. Maybe that's the highest.
Third. Yeah, it's just so interesting, right? Because when Von Miller, do you remember how old Von Miller was when he was traded to the Rams? Was he 31?
31, yeah.
So 2 years younger, and he netted a second, and it was mid-season. It cost the Rams.
And he wanted out. He wanted out.
Yes. But the Broncos also, of his $17 million that was owed, the Broncos kept $10 million of that in the deal. So the Rams only took $7 million on. So
the
there could be something interesting in that, where maybe the Rams go to the Chargers and say, hey, we'll give you a third or fourth, but you got to keep half his contract or so. I don't know how that all works. I'm not a cap wizard like some people out there are, so maybe people are screaming at their screens right now. But I just think starting the year at a $38 million cap hit is going to knock his trade value down at 33 years old. Granted, it's only 1 year left, so you can re-sign him and then potentially restructure. You say you give him a 3-year deal, which brings him to 36. You push this to kind of spread it out. You can get really interesting, and the Rams are the best in the business at doing that.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be shocked if he got a third. I just think, considering he only got a second and a sixth 3 years ago, I'd be shocked if he netted that high 3 years later. But again, you mentioned it, coming off a career year with 17 sacks. So
yeah,
very interesting.
Well, the team that just popped into my head is Washington. Washington's got about $80 million in cap space and no edge rushers. Of which to speak of, and
they got rid of them all.
Yeah.
Traded Sweat for a second and Young for, they traded, there's another thing. They traded Trace Young for a third, who's 10 years younger than Khalil Mack.
It's this kind of silly stuff that I just gets in my head, and I don't like,
right?
I know that edge rushers are worth a lot of money.
Yeah.
I can tell you that much. Beyond that,
well, and not to keep cutting you off, but it's like the fact that Carolina, it might change now, but just a year or two ago was asking for 2 firsts for Brian Burns. And then Chase Young, who's a top 5 pick, got a third, less than Sweat. Montez Sweat got a second. We just don't know. Like, who really knows?
Yeah.
But I know the Rams are smart, and they'll be like, our rival gave up a third for Chase Young. Yeah, we're not giving up a third for a 33-year-old. So,
yeah.
But Chase Young was also booty cheeks in the playoffs. So,
booty cheeks.
Yeah. So, Khalil Mack might be better. Never know.
Hopefully.
Anyway, always fun Discord. Did you have anything else to add? I kept cutting you off.
No. I like I said, my head just starts to get wrapped up when you just start thinking about all the dumb trades that have been made over the years, all the stupid, and then you got a team like the Rams who they get Odell Beckham, they get Von Miller, and then they win a Super Bowl. But those were good trades, short term, move some money around. Those guys wanted out of their situation.
Yeah. And you just never know, right? Because they gave up 2 firsts for Jalen Ramsey. And then just 2 years or 3 years later, got a third and a third string tight end. So it's like the value just fluctuates so much based on what their current contract is and what the numbers are. So anyway, Rams will certainly be in the market at some level, whether it's high spending in free agency, whether it's a vet, and obviously in the draft, as we just talked about. So thank you all for hanging out with us, tuning in. For Skinny T, I'm Ryan Dowd. Everyone enjoy the combine. We'll be back on Thursday. We're going to talk receivers, running backs. We might sprinkle in some quarterbacks. There's still a lot of dark clouds around Stetson Bennett and what his future looks like. So the Rams may draft a quarterback in the mid rounds, and obviously Stafford's not getting any younger. And then perhaps we'll look at what other positions we have. Safety, tackle. I don't know. We'll see if we can get through all of them on Thursday. We'll try to do rapid fire. So make sure to tune in for that. If you're watching on YouTube, please make sure to like and subscribe to the Rams LAFB YouTube channel. Helps us out. We're trying to get to 1,000. We're getting great engagement with all you guys, getting lots of fanfare, but we'd love to get that number over 1,000 for subscriptions. So we appreciate that. And make sure to check out LAFBnetwork.com for all of our other Rams content, written and digital, plus all of the other 3 teams we cover. If you're an SC fan or a UCLA fan, or if you just want to see what's going on with the Chargers, we got it all there in one place. Everyone be well, be safe. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you all on Thursday.